Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd really appreciate your comment. It helps me understand if you enjoyed the story and how I can improve in future ones. I came home on a Thursday at 7:18, still wearing my badge from the plant because I forgot to rip it off in the parking lot. My name is Daniel Cross. I'm 39, and I run night operations for a distribution facility on the west side of Phoenix. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the AC and the clink of glass from the living room. I set the takeout bag on the counter, called out that I'd grabbed her favorite lime rice, and reached for the hanger by the door. That's when I heard her voice. Not the voice she uses with me, the careful one, but the looser version she saves for her friends. Fast, a little mean, like she's flipping through a stack of judgments she's been saving up. Please, I'm not obligated to sleep with him. My hand stopped in the air with my jacket half off my shoulder. She said it with a laugh that wasn't joy so much as performance. I didn't move. I stood there in the shadow of the hallway where the tile turns to carpet and listened to the rest of my marriage get summarized in 10 board syllables. It's been, what? 3 weeks, she continued, the couch cushions squeaking as she shifted. He acts like it's a bill that's due, pays the mortgage and thinks he's entitled to my body. Men are exhausting. I could see her from where I stood, bare feet tucked under her, phone raised to her ear. A glass of red balanced on the armrest like gravity didn't apply to it. The TV was on mute with captions racing across the screen. Her attention was on the conversation, on landing the line and waiting for the approval that would come through a sigh or a giggle. Her friend said something I couldn't catch. She answered louder, like she wanted the neighborhood to hear. No, I don't feel bad. He's boring. I come home, and he's got spreadsheets open or he's reorganizing the garage like it's a religion. I'm 29 in my head, and I'm married to a 40-year-old who acts 50. I'm not 50. I'm 39 with a back that still handles 12-hour shifts, a mind that keeps 3 crews moving without losing a pallet, and hands that have put every shelf in that garage into studs. I was half a step from walking in and asking who exactly she thought she was describing. But I didn't. Something in me said she needed to finish. Interrupting would just give her a new story to tell about how I overreacted. So I steadied my breathing, quiet, measured, and let the tape run. Yeah, he tried cuddling last night, she said. I told him I was tired. He asked if we could plan something for the weekend. Plan. Like desire is a calendar invite. Another laugh. He'll get over it. He always does. I could taste the lime on the back of my tongue even though I hadn't opened the container. The AC kicked up a gear, and the vent over the hallway door fluttered. She didn't pause. She was relaxed, confident, curled into the safety of a friend who would nod along whether or not the facts lined up. And he's so needy lately, she added. Like I'm his emotional support human. If I say no, he gets quiet, and then I feel like the bad guy. I'm not doing that dance. Quiet isn't punishment for me. Quiet is where I make sense of the mess. Her friend said something again, and she dropped her voice just enough that I had to angle a little closer to the doorway, toes touching the seam where tile meets carpet. Look, I'm not going to be guilted into anything, she said. I don't owe him intimacy. I don't owe him anything, honestly. He's not doing me a favor by paying a couple bills. That's the bare minimum. A couple bills. Mortgage, insurance, the second car I don't drive, the streaming services she browses when I'm at work. Bare minimum. It's funny the things you notice in moments like that. The way she swirled the wine without looking at the glass. How the lamp we bought 2 summers ago for our old apartment threw a yellow ring on the ceiling. How the dog next door barked twice and then stopped, like even he wanted to hear the ending. Anyway, she said, voice brightening, we're doing girls' night tomorrow. I'm not changing it just because he wants to have a talk. I swear he schedules feelings. I slid the jacket off the rest of the way and hung it up carefully, like noise would get me caught. Because I wanted to hear her unfiltered. I wanted the data, her words without the smile, without the, I didn't mean it like that. Her friend must have asked if I was home. She laughed again. He's probably stuck in traffic or reorganizing his soul in the driveway. If he were here, he'd do that thing where he tries to make it constructive. I'm not doing therapy with a man who can't pick a restaurant without a spreadsheet. I stood there long enough for my shoulders to loosen. Then I stepped back toward the kitchen and twisted the paper bag open so it made noise on purpose. The living room went quiet for a beat. Then I heard the soft clink of glass as she set it down, and her voice dropped into the tone she uses when she's performing kindness. Hey babe, she called out. You home? I didn't answer right away. I put rice into a bowl, set a fork beside it, and took the first bite standing up because chairs felt too definite. When I finally spoke, my voice didn't crack the way it sometimes does when I'm exhausted. It came out steady. Yeah, I said. Traffic was fine. She came to the edge of the room, but didn't cross into the kitchen. She leaned on the doorframe like it might be a photo later. Her phone glowed in her hand. Her face was open and careful, the kind you wear when you're not sure what the other person has heard. You grab something to eat, she asked, eyes flicking to the bag. Lime rice, I said. From the place you like. She smiled a small, neat smile and said thanks with a voice that would play well in front of friends. Then she drifted back to the couch and turned the TV volume up just enough to create a wall. The call was over. The performance was back on. I ate slowly, not tasting much, and washed my bowl and put it on the rack with the others. Upstairs, I stood in our room and looked at the bed like it belonged to two people I used to know. The phone conversation looped in my head, but it didn't sting the way I expected. She'd reframed the entire marriage in her mind, and she was telling the story she preferred. In her story, I was a needy accountant of affection, collecting invoices. In mine, I was a man who had been faithful, present, maybe too patient, and suddenly very awake. I didn't sleep much. I thought about the mortgage auto draft that hits on the first. I thought about the second set of keys I always hang by the door. I thought about all the little things I do without narrating them. Filters changed, tires rotated, the deadbolt repaired after it stuck last winter. Obligations, apparently. Minimums. It's strange how a line can be so simple and still change the room temperature. I'm not obligated. The words were clean and final in her mouth. Lying there, I realized I didn't need to argue with that. I just needed to understand what it meant for me. If she wasn't obligated to the marriage in its most basic form, then I wasn't obligated to play pack mule, bodyguard, and bank. The math was simple. The hard part would be staying calm long enough to execute it. Around midnight, I got up and stood at the window for a while, watching the empty street. A cat moved along the curb, casual and unbothered. Far off, someone shut a car door and laughed. I let my hands rest on the sill until the tightness in my chest loosened. Then I made the first decision that felt like mine in a long time. I wasn't going to confront a performance with a performance. I'd let her keep the story she liked telling. Meanwhile, I'd start writing a different one, with actions, not speeches. I turned off the light and lay back down, eyes open, mind surprisingly clear. If she wanted to live without obligation, I would show her exactly how that felt. Not tomorrow in a storm of accusations. Quietly, the way a man turns a valve and reroutes the line to make the system honest again. I moved through the house like a man who knows where everything goes and touches only what's his. She woke late, cheerful in that brittle way that means the cheer is for someone else. Humming while she made coffee, scrolling with her free hand, pausing at the sink to snap a picture of foam art she didn't drink. When she glanced up and saw me at the kitchen table with my laptop, the humming stopped like a switch had been flipped. You're awfully quiet lately, she said, testing the water. Why wouldn't I be? I answered, eyes still on the spreadsheet. Silence used to make me uncomfortable. Now it felt like insulation. I finished my notes for the night shift, closed the laptop, rinsed my mug, and drove to the plant. The sky over I-10 was a clean blue that made me think of a new whiteboard. That's how the next week felt. Blank, available, waiting for someone to write in thick marker what the rules were going to be. The rules she wrote were simple. Push, watch, push again. She started staying out later and calling it girl time, leaning on the word like it made the clock stop matching. She came home at midnight once, perfume too bright, shoes in her hand, whispering shoo to a house that hadn't asked for quiet. Another night she parked on the street instead of the driveway and sat in the car for 15 minutes, lit by the blue square of her phone, laughing at something only the glass could hear. When she was home, she threaded little cuts into ordinary moments. You always make everything a project. When I asked which weekend she wanted to visit her sister. Maybe if you weren't so boring. While passing behind me on her way to the fridge. I'm not your therapist. When I said we should plan a day with no screens. Each sentence was small enough to be deniable, sharp enough to leave a mark. I let them land and disappear. The dog next door barked every afternoon at the mail truck. I started timing the intervals out of habit. 37 seconds to the corner, 18 back. My mind likes patterns, and the pattern at home was now obvious. Contempt when she felt safe, charm when she felt watched, indifference when neither worked. The night after the midnight arrival, she asked if I wanted to split a pizza and watch something. I said no thanks, I'd eaten at the plant. It was true. It also placed my appetite outside her orbit. She shrugged and ordered anyway, ate 2 slices on the couch, and left the box open like a flag. I closed it, set it in the fridge, and went upstairs. I did speak once, because a man should confirm what he already knows. She was at the sink, rinsing a wine glass, that same glass that always seemed to be exactly where the light could catch it. "What's going on?" I asked from the doorway. "With what?" She didn't turn around. "Us." She set the glass upside down on the drying mat and kept her hands under the water like the answer might be there. "Nothing," she said. "You're just in a mood. Is there someone else?" There was a small pause, the kind that measures the distance between what's true and what's smart to say. "No," she said, and finally looked over her shoulder. "Why would you even ask that?" "Because you're acting like you need an audience," I said. "And I'm not it." Her mouth tightened. "Maybe don't make everything about you." "I'm not." I held her eyes for a beat. "That's the point." I left it there. I wasn't building a case. I was making sure she heard the tone. Calm, finished. After that, my days were clean. I did my job, ran the numbers, walked the warehouse during break to feel the hum of the conveyors, and went home to a version of the house that had fewer conversations and more facts. I started getting up earlier, taking a 20-minute drive before sunrise with coffee and a podcast, because I wanted to hear my own thoughts before the day borrowed them. I moved my emergency contacts from her to my brother. It took 30 seconds and changed nothing in the world, but it changed everything in me. She noticed the changes and tried on different masks. One evening she came downstairs in a dress she hadn't worn in months, the kind that used to make me forget what I'd been saying. She paused where I could see her and asked if the color looked good. It did. I said so, evenly, the way a salesman might say the truck has 4-wheel drive. Her smile faltered a millimeter. Another night she sat beside me on the couch and put a hand on my leg, light as a coin. I let it sit there. I didn't move toward it or away. After a minute she pulled back and announced she was meeting friends. The friends multiplied online. Stories went up with captions about choosing joy and protecting your energy. Photos of crowded tables and tilted wine bottles. Boomerangs of clinking glasses. In one, I saw the edge of our living room behind her, a lamp, that yellow ring on the ceiling, and felt nothing except a clearer sense of coordinates. My life had been mapped to hers by habit. Now I was drawing a new grid. She tried another angle. Pity. "I feel bad sometimes," she said one morning, unprompted, as I laced my boots. "Like you don't have enough fun." "I'm content," I said. "That's not the same as happy." "I know the difference," I said, and tied the loop. On Thursday she asked if I could Venmo her for a flight she wanted to book before the price jumps. I told her I'd already allocated my discretionary budget for the month. It wasn't a game. I had. She blinked, surprised not by the refusal but by the absence of apology around it. "Right," she said. "Okay." That evening she posted a story about independence with a rocket emoji. I scrolled past it the way you step around a puddle. Her mother called me on Friday, voice careful. "Is everything okay over there?" I said things were fine, then added, "We're just giving each other a lot of independence right now." She sighed into the phone like she recognized the word but didn't like the taste. "Well," she said, "marriage is teamwork." "I agree," I said, and let the silence after that make the point. By the weekend the house felt like 2 hotel rooms with a wall you could talk through if you wanted. She spent Saturday out and returned with shopping bags, narrating nothing, performing nothing. I fixed a loose hinge on the pantry door because I like things to close right, not because anyone would notice. She watched me do it, then said, "You can't help yourself, can you?" "Correct," I said. "I prefer functional doors." That landed in the category she files as boring. She shook her head and went upstairs. A few minutes later, laughter floated down from the bathroom as she FaceTimed someone, and I caught a fragment. "No, he's fine. He's just being Daniel." And I realized that used to be an insult. Now it sounded like a boundary. Sunday night, I found myself at the table with a legal pad, making 2 columns the way I do at work when I'm troubleshooting. On the left, what I control. On the right, what I don't. The right column filled quickly and then stopped. The left column grew in quiet, practical lines. My time, my attention, my money, my tone. I stared at the lists until the noise in my head flattened into one sentence that felt like a plumb line dropping through the center of the room. I'm not confused. That's what escalation did for me. It pushed me into clarity. She could keep humming when she thought I wasn't listening, keep testing for the edge like a swimmer toes the deep end. I'd found the edge. I was standing on it, balanced, ready to speak once and mean it. The moment would come soon enough. And when it did, I wouldn't be asking for anything. I'd be telling her what I would and would not live with, in a voice quiet enough to hear the decision inside it. Sunday started clean. Sun through the blinds. The faint smell of last night's pizza every time the fridge door opened. The house quiet except for the AC and the ticking of the kitchen clock that gains a minute every 2 months. I brewed coffee, poured it into the heavy mug that doesn't tip, and sat at the table with a legal pad. 2 columns again, but this time not for troubleshooting. For terms. She came downstairs in one of those oversized sweatshirts that are supposed to look careless and expensive. Phone in one hand, hair in the kind of bun that says don't start anything. She stopped when she saw the pad, like paperwork offended her on principle. What now? She said, not a question. I tapped the page with the pen. Clarity. She rolled her eyes and opened the fridge. You schedule feelings, Daniel. It's weird. I let that pass. I'd promised myself I only speak once, and that when I did, it would be with the kind of calm that makes forklifts stop moving. I drew a line under the headings and turned the pad so she could see. Option A, I said. We rebuild. That means respect, not contempt. No more phone performances about our marriage. We use counseling weekly for 3 months. We put our phones away after 9. We plan time together on purpose. We treat intimacy as connection, not leverage. If you're in, you say it plainly and you act like it. She closed the fridge without taking anything. And option B, I said, is separation. Finances split. No more shared cards. No more casual asks. I move to a short-term place, or you do. We file. No drama. Just done. She laughed short and bright, like a car door locking. You're ridiculous. Clock starts now, I said. 72 hours. She blinked like I'd switched languages. You can't give me a deadline for my life. You already did, I said. You said you're not obligated. This is me agreeing with you. She leaned against the counter and crossed her arms. So what? If I don't meet your little list by Wednesday, you're leaving? I'm choosing the option you've been choosing for weeks, I said. I'm just doing it out loud. I set my phone on the table and created a calendar event for Wednesday, 7 p.m. Title, Decision. The little colored block popped onto the screen, neat and square. She watched me do it, then smiled like she'd found the punchline again. You're actually serious? Yes. She shook her head, amused and bored at the same time. You won't follow through. I didn't ask you to believe me, I said. I told you what happens next. She slid onto a stool and drummed her nails on the counter. And what happens between now and your big deadline? Boundaries, I said. I'm not your driver, lender, or buffer. I'll be fair. I won't be available. You want something, ask with respect and with your own resources behind it. I'll do the same. That's so dramatic, she said. It's simple, I said, and pushed the pad an inch closer. Read the list. She stared at me instead, waiting for heat that never came. So I gave her specifics, the way I do with new hires, so there's no confusion later. Finances are already split, I said. Your phone plan moves to your name tomorrow. Auto drafts for your subscriptions are off my card. I'll cover half the fixed bills through the end of the month. After that, we adjust to whatever option you choose. I'm switching to the guest room tonight. I won't attend anything social as your prop. If you want this marriage, you say so and act accordingly. If you want independence, you've already got it. But I'm done paying for both. She laughed again, softer. You sound like an HR manual. I sound like a man who has finished asking, I said. She tapped her phone awake and started scrolling, the modern way to end a conversation. I stood, rinsed my mug, and wiped the ring it left on the table with the heel of my hand. My body felt light and heavy at the same time, like the first step down a ladder when you've been on the roof too long. I went upstairs, pulled a duffel from the closet, and packed like I was leaving for a week-long rotation. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, toiletries, a paperback I've been meaning to finish. By noon I'd called the carrier and moved her line off my account. 10 minutes of menus, 5 minutes of a polite rep reading from a script, and it was done. I transferred my direct deposit from the joint account to my personal and scheduled a final half payment for the mortgage with a note in the memo line that only I would ever read. Through August 31st. I took a photo of the pad with the options and texted it to her, because verbal conversations can be rewritten in memory and images can't. She replied with a thumbs up, then a heart, then nothing. I made myself a sandwich and ate it standing up because chairs still felt like statements. She drifted in and out of the kitchen, light on her feet like the floor might complain. Once she paused near me and let her shoulder brush mine. I went to the garage and tightened the bolts on the workbench out of habit. When I came back inside, the pad was turned around again, facing me, untouched. At 3 she dressed to go out. The same dress from the other night, the one that used to make time warp. She stood in the doorway and looked me over. "You're really going to do the separate rooms thing?" she said. "I already did," I said. "Guest rooms set. So we're roommates now?" "We're adults making choices," I said. "You asked for no obligation." "I heard you." She smiled, sweet and confident. "And you think a timer is going to make me change my mind?" "I think the timer is going to make your decision visible," I said. She picked up her keys and spun them on a finger. "See you later." "I'll be here," I said, and opened the back door to let some heat in on purpose, just to feel the difference when the AC fought it back. She left, perfume trailing a sentence behind her that didn't land. The rest of the day moved like a straight line. I did laundry for the first time in 2 weeks without factoring someone else's colors into the load. I measured the pantry shelf I've been meaning to replace and wrote down the length. I set the guest room up with my alarm and the book and the small lamp I like because it throws light straight down instead of everywhere. At 6, I answered a text from her mother asking if we were coming to dinner next weekend with a clear, polite no. At 7, I drove to the hardware store and bought the wood. At 8, I lay on the guest bed and read the same paragraph 5 times because my mind kept checking the corners of the room and finding them square. When she came home after 10, she walked into the guest room without knocking. She looked around like she'd expected a stunt and found a plan instead. "You're really committing to this," she said. "I commit to things," I said. She waited for more. I didn't give it. Eventually she nodded like she'd won a point in a game I wasn't playing and went to our bedroom. I turned off the lamp and let the dark settle. There's a particular quiet that follows a clean decision. It isn't peace exactly. It's clarity. I lay there and felt it moving through me like cold water does when you wash grease off your hands. A sting, a shine, a surface you can finally grip. The clock in the kitchen ticked its false time. My phone on the nightstand ticked the true. The colored block on Wednesday sat there in the future, unbothered, exactly where I'd put it. She can leave. I'm not holding her back. I won't put up with the antics anymore. I had said it once, out loud, in daylight, with terms. The rest would be action. Monday didn't react to the deadline. It moved like any other Monday. Emails at 6:12, rollout checklist at 7, supervisors in the conference room by 8:30, the conveyor belts sounding like distant rain by noon. At home she hummed again, brighter than she felt, and wore that oversized sweatshirt like armor. The colored block on Wednesday at 7 p.m. sat inside my phone, calm and square. I didn't talk about it. She pretended not to see it. The house adjusted around the pretense the way drywall flexes around a stud that's not quite plumb. She stayed out that night. Girl time, posted in white font over a boomerang of clinking glasses. The caption said, "Choose joy." Comments said, "Yas and Queen and love this for you." I stood at the sink and rinsed my plate until the water ran clear and thought about the difference between joy and an alibi. When she came in close to midnight, she tripped over the threshold and laughed, soft and theatrical, for an audience that had gone home. Tuesday began with a practical consequence. She texted from the salon. "Card declined?" A question with a hook. I answered. I moved subscriptions and extras off my card Sunday. She typed 3 dots, erased them, typed again, then sent a single OK with a period that wished it were a door. I brewed coffee and sent my own email to the insurance agent to split the policies by Friday. Not a threat. A tidy line item. The kind of thing that makes systems honest. At noon her mother called. She says you're freezing her out. I said I wasn't freezing anything. I was respecting her independence and my own. The silence on the other end felt like a hand searching for a railing in the dark. "Marriage is teamwork," she said. "It is," I said. "Right now, we're 2 people traveling in different directions." I'm just not pretending we're in the same car. I could hear the TV in the background at her mother's house, a game show bell ringing for someone else's luck. She sighed, told me to take care, and hung up. At 3, the gym front desk called her because her membership, the one that used my auto-pay, had bounced. She took the call in the living room with just enough volume for me to be the audience. "No, I'll add a card," she said, smiling through it. "No big deal." She made it sound effortless. Then she opened the banking app and stared at it long enough for the smile to shake. She didn't ask me for anything. That was new. Little edges found her. The streaming logins asked for payment. She texted, "What happened to Netflix?" "Use your account," I wrote back. She replied with a screenshot of a sign-up page and the words "so petty." I put my phone face down and tightened the pantry hinge I'd measured on Sunday, because some noises are worth fixing and some aren't. That night she tried seduction like someone testing a window that used to be unlocked. A closer dress. A casual hand at the back of my neck. A kiss that almost landed. "You're not obligated," I said, the same even tone I use for forklift safety and finish times. I watched the sentence reach her, not as a barb, but as a mirror. She pulled back, eyes calculating. The next hour she spent building an argument out of thin sticks. "You're cruel. You're punishing me. You're making me feel unsafe in my own home." Each claim lay there where it fell. Wednesday morning, the kitchen clock did its usual trick, 1 minute too fast, racing to the top of the hour because it doesn't know better. The colored block in my phone didn't move. Neither did I. I answered emails, signed off on a supplier change, shifted money from the joint account to the mortgage and utilities with labels that would make sense to any auditor. She paced the length of the downstairs, heel-toe, opening drawers and closing them with more force than necessary, as if she might find a different version of me in one. Around noon, a friend of hers texted me, one of the quieter ones who never laughs at the lines. "I don't agree with how she's handling this," she wrote. "You don't owe me a reply." I stared at the message until the urge to explain passed. Then I typed, "Thanks for the kindness," and left it there. Not everything needs a speech. By afternoon, the consequences were less financial and more structural. She had scheduled a rideshare to take her to a meeting. It canceled twice. Her car sat in the driveway with the battery I'd meant to replace in July when the heat started acting like a thief. She stood by the hood with keys in her hand, eyes on me through the window. I stepped outside, kept the distance of a neighbor. "Battery's done," I said. "So you're not going to help me?" Her voice tried to sound curious. It sounded like a test. "I am helping," I said. "I'm telling you what's wrong. I don't have time for this." "There's a parts store 3 blocks over," I said. "They'll swap it. Or you can call the roadside service. Your policy's in your name now. Either way works." She looked at the driveway like it had betrayed her. "You used to just do it." "I used to do a lot of things you didn't notice," I said. She called the service, sat on the front steps while the sun pushed everyone's patience toward the edge, and posted a photo of her legs with the caption, "Some days are like this." By late afternoon, her control strategy shifted from charm to panic. She followed me room to room with questions on top of questions. "What exactly happens at 7? Where are you going to sleep tonight? Are you seeing someone?" The last one looked like a throwaway. It wasn't. I answered what deserved answers. "Guest room. Mortgage through the month." "I'm not seeing anyone. That's not how I operate." I didn't fill the silence after each response. She did, with guesses and stories that circled until they got dizzy. At 6:42, she sat opposite me at the kitchen table and tried a softer weapon. "I think we've both been dramatic," she said. "We should talk about a reset." The word reset floated between us like a balloon looking for a hand. I nodded once to acknowledge the sound it made and said nothing else. The clock ticked its fake time. My phone ticked the real. At 6:59, she reached across the table. Her fingers touched the back of my hand like a truce flag. "I'm not ready to decide," she said. "You can't force this." "I'm not forcing anything," I said. "I'm observing it." 7 p.m. arrived exactly on time. The colored block turned from future to present. I stood up and slid an envelope across the table. Inside, a list of accounts already separated, the date the utilities would split, a notice to the mortgage company outlining payments through the end of the month, and the name of a counselor with an appointment open Friday at 4 if she wanted option A. Beneath it, another card, the first consultation date with a lawyer if she preferred option B. Both were printed. Both were real. Both were her choice. She stared at it like a stranger had left a package on our porch. "You actually did this." I told you what would happen, I said. This is me keeping my word. She tried one more angle. Mockery, the last refuge of people who built the argument and lost the blueprint. You made a packet. Congratulations. I made a plan, I said. You can also make one. She didn't ask for the lawyer's number. She slid the envelope back an inch with 2 fingers and smiled the way people smile when they're losing daylight and pretending they aren't. I'll think about it, she said. I'm not going to be rushed. I'm not rushing you, I said. The deadline was for my behavior, not yours. And I've met it. She pushed back from the table and stood. The performance adjusted, found its next scene. She picked up her phone and typed something that made her lips curl. The house settled around the new gravity. The guest room made. The accounts separated, the calendar marked. Outside, the streetlights came on one by one like a checklist, and the kitchen clock kept insisting it knew the hour when it didn't. Inside, there was no insistence left. Just the shape of the next step, already cut, waiting. She believed the envelope could be ignored into non-existence. She believed that dragging meant control. Maybe it had before. In this version of the house, delay was only a kind of answer. Others were starting to see it. The front desk at her gym, her mother on the phone, the friend who sent me a message with more decency in one line than we'd had at our table in months. I didn't need anyone to take sides. I needed the system to be honest. I rinsed my glass, set it on the rack, and turned off the kitchen light. In the dark reflection of the window, the room looked like a drawing. Clean lines, no shading, everything where it belonged. I felt the quiet you get from a valve turned the right way at last. The block on my calendar shifted to past, and the house exhaled. The house felt different after the envelope. She moved through rooms like a person who'd lost a set of keys, but didn't want to admit it. The counselor's card stayed where I left it, face down under a coaster. The lawyer's date lived on my calendar whether she looked at it or not. I kept my word the way I keep safety protocols at the plant, because I'm the kind of man who does the thing he says he'll do. The first few days, she went back to performance. Laughter on speakerphone, posts about resilience, a caption about choosing happiness, a photo angled to make the kitchen look bigger than it is. She floated the word reset again, as if repetition could turn it into a plan. I didn't add commentary to her storyline. I lived mine. One night, I drove out to a month-to-month place near the freeway and took a look at a furnished unit, clean walls, decent light, a table big enough for a legal pad. I scheduled the walkthrough for the following Tuesday. That's what real decisions look like. Dates, signatures, keys. She tried a new tactic, delay by kindness. A hand on my arm while I loaded the dishwasher. A soft voice in the hallway asking if I wanted to try that restaurant on 7th she once mocked as for dads. She reached for my old reflexes, the ones that used to bridge any gap with a plan and a reservation. I let the moments pass like traffic in another lane. Her mother called again. Is this really necessary? I answered plainly. Respect is necessary. The rest is negotiable. There was a long exhale on the other end, the sound people make when they realize they're not part of the decision. A day later, the quiet friend sent one more message. If you need a witness to how hard you tried, I'm here. I thanked her and left it at that. I don't collect alibis. I collect facts. On Friday at 4, I drove to the counselor's office. I sat in the car and looked at the door for a full minute, then went in alone. 50 minutes later, I had exactly what I came for. Not advice, language, boundaries, non-negotiables. The sentence that stuck to my ribs. You can love someone and still refuse to be treated with contempt. On the way home, I bought groceries like a man who expects to be responsible for himself. Eggs, rice, a pack of chicken breasts, a bag of limes for reasons that felt petty and weren't. Back at the house, the coaster had shifted. The counselor's card was still under it. Untouched counts as an answer. Sunday morning, I packed 2 more duffels and staged them by the door. No drama. Jeans, work shirts, a pair of boots, the photo of my dad at my high school graduation that never quite hung straight in our hallway. I placed the envelope from Wednesday in the center of the kitchen table again, this time with a note above it in block letters. Option A expires Monday 5 p.m. Not a threat. Deadlines aren't violence. They're clarity. She responded with a performance for one. Tears that came fast and dried even faster. Accusations pitched like fishing lines to see which would hook. You're abandoning me. You're making me choose. You want to punish me. I answered what was actually asked. I'm choosing myself. I'm acknowledging the choice you already made. I'm finished living inside a script I didn't write. The rest fell to the floor like dull knives and stayed there. At 5:13 on Monday, the note was still on the table. I took a photo of it next to the time on the microwave clock that runs fast and another next to my phone. 2 timestamps. One lie, one truth. I put the photo in a folder named Decisions and picked up the duffels. She watched me from the doorway of our bedroom with arms crossed tight enough to hold herself together. "You're really doing this?" "Yes." "You'll be back?" "No." She reached for a promise I no longer keep and found air. I moved into the furnished unit that night. Month to month, clean, quiet, nothing extra. The AC made a different kind of hum, softer, like it had more dignity than ours. I set my alarm on the new nightstand, placed the counselor's card beside it, and changed my emergency contact to my brother. I cooked rice in a cheap pan and ate it with lime and salt and chicken that tasted like starting over. I slept like the kind of man who isn't being watched, which is to say deeply. 2 days later, the lawyer slid papers across a desk the color of old coffee. Straightforward separation, assets listed, dates marked. The house would either be refinanced into one name or sold. I offered her both options with clean math attached. Her reply arrived by text. "This is so cold." I wrote back the truest sentence I had. Cold is what happens when the fire is all one-sided. After that, I let counsel handle it. Delegation is a leadership skill. People adjusted around the new reality in the way they always do. The plant didn't care who I slept next to. Pallets still needed to move. My crews noticed I walked the floor more evenly. One supervisor asked if I'd changed my workout. The neighbor with the barking dog waved when I came back to pick up a toolbox. He didn't ask why I wasn't carrying it into the same garage. Her mother left a Tupperware of lasagna on my new doorstep one afternoon with a note that read, "You were good to her." I ate it standing at the counter and texted thank you. Kindness doesn't have to be complicated. She tried late one night to fold the story back onto itself. A message with a photo of us from 2 summers ago, lake water and bright sun and arms around shoulders. "We're good together." We were, when respect lived here. I didn't send that. I typed "take care" and erased it. I set the phone face down and let the message be what it was, an echo. The next morning I called the counselor and booked another session, mine alone. I don't outsource my reconstruction. By the end of the month, the house was under contract. She took the dining table and the couch and a mirror that always made the room feel taller. I took the tools, the books, the lamp that throws light straight down. We signed papers in different rooms at the title office. A bored man in a blue tie explained things no one needed explained. A woman handed me a cheap pen like we were initiating something instead of ending it. My name on the last page looked like a line someone could walk if they needed to go somewhere else. I changed small things that weren't small. Stopped checking her accounts for autopays by reflex. Removed her thumbprint from the safe. Canceled the shared cloud storage and printed the 4 photos I actually wanted. My dad. The day we closed on the house. My crew after a perfect quarter. A sunset scene through a warehouse door that needed new weather stripping. Paper is harder to rewrite. News traveled the way it always does. Her friend group got quieter online. Fewer captions about queens and joy. One of them unfollowed me. 2 didn't. The quiet one sent one last message. "I hope you get the life that matches how you showed up." I told her I already was. It felt true. I signed a year at the apartment and bought a heavy mug that doesn't tip. The morning sun through the blinds looked like a clean ledger. She sent a final text 3 weeks later. "I miss us." It arrived at 11:37 p.m. The hour people love the idea of you more than the work of you. I read it. Let the part of me that used to sprint toward any olive branch take one slow breath and set the phone down without replying. Silence isn't cruelty. It's alignment. Not every door needs to be slammed. Some need to be left closed so both sides can hear their own homes. I didn't lose anything either that wasn't already gone. I walked into a version of my days where the math adds up, the doors close straight, the AC hums like a promise kept. Respect is not negotiable. Love that requires you to swallow contempt isn't love. It's a contract for erasure. I don't sign those anymore. If she ever chooses humility and the work that follows it, good for her. May she find a man who believes her when she says what she is. May he believe himself enough to walk if the story turns again. As for me, I drink my coffee, make my rounds, pay my bills, answer my brother's calls, keep my word, and sleep in a bed that tells the truth back. The packet on the table was never about forcing her hand. It was about finally taking my own.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.